بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of my all-time favorite movies is The Matrix. It has so many anecdotes for life with prophecies, good versus evil, change versus controls, subjugation versus liberation. A memorable scene is the interrogation of Morpheus when Agent Smith says, looking out the window at the buildings, streets, traffic, and people, and says, "Have you ever stood and stared at it, marveled at its beauty, its genius? Billions of people just living out their lives oblivious." This really reminds me of President Biden's statement on ABC's 60 Minutes program. He said, "We are the United States of America. For God's sake, the most powerful nation in the history of the world. We are the essential nation." In effect, Biden was marveling at the power of America, and its people and the citizens of the world are oblivious to what it does. We have seen how the cursed usurper has broken the ceasefires and immediately restarted their vicious campaign with total support of the essential nation. We should understand that this criminal behavior will not end, disregarding the emotion, the empathy, and the kindness the majority of the world's populations have shown. So why has this global expression of solidarity not even lessened the genocide? On the one hand, Netanyahu adopts a strategy in managing his conflict with the Palestinians that involves imposing a fait accompli and perpetuating the conflict. On the other hand, the US seeks to achieve the security of the Zionist entity and US national security through peace and stability and the so-called two-state solution. On both counts, Palestine is to be erased geopolitically. On both counts, Muslim blood is spilt for America's benefit and to serve America's interests. Netanyahu's genocidal and ideological war, citing his sacred book, and the United States and its Western alliance unconditional support without regard for world public opinion, international law, and norms, have demonstrated unequivocally that the world's citizens are truly oblivious to the lie they are living. US Senator Lindsey Graham, when asked about the massive Palestinian civilian casualties, said, "Did the American people worry about how many people died when we destroyed Tokyo and Berlin?" This contradicts recent public opinion and opinion polls in the US, which have shown that more than half of American youth view the operations carried out by Al-Qassam brigades against the occupation as justified. When Western democracies totally ignore their citizens' demands, these are the taxpayers and the voters, then it can only mean that democracy is a farce and used to make them believe the lie, living oblivious. It is yet another control, as the architect said to Neo in The Matrix. When they take on sides, using passive victim language to describe one side and aggressive language to describe the other, as they have done, they have shown that the principles of diversity, inclusion, and equality don't really apply. They have trashed it, sentenced it, and binned it. Probably diversity, inclusion, and equality are now in a recycling center undergoing some remodeling to be reissued in another form pretty soon. When they refused to apply international law, crippled the UN and vetoed all efforts and undermined Security Council resolutions that categorically stated that these world order institutions are there to protect the interests only of the colonialists, as the rest of mankind are brutes that must be protected from themselves. The capitalist colonial settler knows best. This event, Gaza, has called into question every so-called value and values that Western Alliance has espoused to the oblivious citizens. These so-called values don't exist. They are mere makeup, and cheap makeup. The new normal is the exploitation of brutality and heart-wrenching massacres using one-ton bombs on densely populated areas to generate a rift between Hamas and its popular base. No one, no military, no nation can accept this except those who have no moral compass or humanitarian values. The new normal is to take advantage of the strategic colonialist value of the usurper entity in the region and Biden's need for the support for Israel card in the election season. Thus, the stance taken by the US and its Western alliance is the embodiment of their only value: strategic benefits and interests. There are no true friends, there are no lasting relationships, there are only strategic benefits and interests, Eisenhower famously said. Confirming that this usurper entity is colonialist project and their investment, all what they are doing is to ensure that this usurper entity remains and stays as a colonialist project, as a colonialist outpost, as a dagger in the heart of the Ummah. And it is an investment that is reaping rewards in multi-billion dollars of arms sales, the flow of oil, and the control of strategic waterways. Benefits and interests are the only value the essential nation and its Western alliance believe in. It has become the only measure to which they adhere to, and the only criterion of any of their actions. We have seen how all the supposed humanitarian, moral, and spiritual values have become relative. They only exist in orbit around interests and benefits. Gaza is a living proof of this. We have seen how human rights are only used to attack America's foes, but never their strategic allies and partners. That is, unless America has a reason to do so, such as when Human Rights Watch and Amnesty labeled the usurper an apartheid regime. This reason is always its national interest, such as supporting and enabling extremists, thus rendering human rights a myth and at best a hostage to the leading nation's national interests. Muslims should become self-aware of calls to work through the system, to partake in the world order, its laws, institutions, and so-called universal values. These are only designed to subjugate the Muslims, and their authors themselves don't even respect them, don't even apply them, don't even believe in them. Only interests is what they believe in. I do believe the warnings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to transgressors and oppressors. We all read and believe in the fate of the Pharaoh and Ad and Thamud and many others. However, these are miracles for prophets, and there is no prophet after Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So I remind you, one of the most telling scenes for me is at the end of the third matrix. When the oracle is asked, "Did you know?" the answer was, "No, but I believed." I believe that this ummah can revive itself. I believe that this ummah has the capacity and the resilience to be the leading nation once again. But it requires work. It requires the investment and the sacrifice of our time, our money, and our effort, so that we believe in the idea of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and work towards its implementation. جزاكم الله خير وبارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.